Before David ever held a sword, before he ever wore a crown, there was only the sound of the wind over the hills of Bethlehem. A young shepherd, alone among the fields, guiding his father's flock. The scent of the earth, the song of the birds, and the bleating of the sheep were his only companions. To the eyes of the world he was no one, but to the eyes of God he was someone already chosen. While tending the sheep, David learned to listen, not just to the sounds of nature, but to the voice of God whispering through the silence. It was there, far from human eyes, that his heart was being shaped. Each sunrise brought a new lesson: patience, vigilance, courage. Every wolf driven away, every cold night endured, prepared him for a destiny he could not yet see. God was not training him in palaces, but in valleys, because valleys are where God's kings are forged. There David learned to fight when no one was watching, to sing when no one was listening, and to trust when everything felt empty. That's how God works. Before he places someone over many, he tests them in the little. Before glory, there is wilderness. Before the throne, there is the field. While Israel cried out for a king, God was watching a boy. A pure heart, humble but full of faith. The world saw only a shepherd. God saw a king. One morning, the old prophet Samuel walked silently along the dusty roads of Bethlehem. His heart was heavy, for King Saul had turned away from God. But the Lord had spoken to him, "Arise and go to the house of Jesse, for among his sons I have chosen a king." Samuel obeyed, though he did not yet know the name of the chosen one. When he arrived at Jesse's house, he saw the sons, one by one, strong men, tall, noble in appearance, and quietly Samuel thought, "Surely this is the one the Lord has chosen." But God whispered, "Do not look at his appearance or the height of his stature, for man looks at the outward appearance, but I look at the heart." One by one, Jesse's sons passed before the prophet, but none were chosen. Confused, Samuel asked, "Are these all your sons?" Jesse replied, "There is still the youngest. He's out tending the sheep." They sent for him at once. David entered, sunburned from the fields, his eyes shining with a light that seemed to carry a divine secret. And as he stepped into the room, the Spirit of God stirred in Samuel's heart. The prophet lifted the horn of oil and poured it upon the young shepherd's head. The oil ran down his forehead, and the heavens grew silent. In that moment, David did not understand the weight of what he was receiving, but the angels knew a new king had been chosen. Not a king of the throne, but a king of the heart. Time passed. David returned to the fields, but the Spirit of God never left him. While the world still saw only a shepherd, heaven saw a king in the making. One night, the songs he played on his harp rose like prayers, and those melodies reached the palace where King Saul, tormented and restless, could no longer find peace. Someone told him, "There's a young man, son of Jesse, who plays with his soul. When he plays, even the air changes." David was summoned, and when his hands touched the strings, the evil spirit that tormented Saul fled. The music healed the king, though David didn't realize he was standing before the very throne he would one day inherit. Meanwhile, the armies of Israel trembled before a giant named Goliath.
For 40 days he mocked the people of God, shouting, spreading fear. No one dared to face him. But God doesn't send the strongest, he sends the chosen. When David arrived at the battlefield, bringing bread to his brothers, he heard the giant's challenge and felt his heart ignite. While others ran, he stepped forward and spoke words that still echo today. You come to me with sword and spear, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts. With a simple stone and an unshakable faith, he released what was in his hands, and the giant fell. In that instant, all of Israel knew God doesn't need great weapons, only great hearts. After Goliath's fall, David became the most spoken name in all Israel. People sang in the streets, King Saul has slain his thousands, but David his tens of thousands. Simple words, yet they pierced the king's heart like an arrow. Saul's wounded pride turned into envy, and envy into hate. David, now a warrior and hero, never sought glory. His heart was still that of a shepherd, grateful, humble, faithful. But Saul saw in him a threat. What was once admiration became persecution. The same palace that had welcomed him with music now echoed with the sound of thrown spears. More than once, Saul tried to take his life, and David fled. Not because he was weak, but because he understood some battles are not won with swords, but with obedience. In the deserts of Judah, hiding in caves, David learned one of the hardest lessons of faith, that even when God seems silent, he is still in control. There, among the cold stones, he wrote psalms that would echo through the ages. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. The man who once defeated giants was now fighting his most dangerous enemy, doubt. But David chose to trust. And that choice, not his victory over Goliath, is what truly made him a king. In the shadows of the desert, far from applause and crowns, David found refuge in the cave of Adullam. It was a hiding place for the forgotten, men who were broken, in debt, or in distress. But God turns the rejected into warriors when the right leader arises to guide them. Those men, shattered by life, came to David, and instead of turning them away, he welcomed them. There, something greater than an army was born, a brotherhood forged by faith. Ordinary men became David's mighty warriors, and without realizing it, the shepherd was learning to be a king. For years, David lived as a fugitive. He slept beneath the stars, wrote songs to the sound of the wind, and sought in God the comfort the world had denied him. And in the midst of his pain, he discovered that the presence of God does not dwell in palaces. It lives in the hearts of those who trust, even when they don't understand. One night, David had the chance to end it all. While Saul slept unguarded, the fallen king was only one sword's length from death, but David stepped back. He cut only the edge of Saul's robe and whispered, "I will not touch the Lord's anointed." In that moment, heaven opened over him. For true kings do not rush to claim the throne. They wait for God's timing. And there, in that cave, between tears and faith, David received a promise. The throne would not be taken, it would be given. And David reigned over all Israel, and David administered judgment and justice to all his people. The journey that began with a shepherd's staff had now reached the throne of Israel. David, the man who once faced lions and giants, now ruled over men, tribes, and nations. His crown shone brightly, but its weight was heavier than the iron of the swords he once carried. In Jerusalem, the new king built his house. He brought the Ark of the Covenant, the symbol of God's presence, to the heart of the kingdom. The city trembled with worship, and David danced before the Lord with all his soul, unashamed before the eyes of men. In that moment, he was neither a king nor a warrior. He was simply a worshiper. But with the throne came temptation. The man after God's own heart would also be tested by the weaknesses of his own heart. From the balcony of his palace, David saw Bathsheba. Desire blinded him, lust